I'll never forget the moment my daughter looked me straight in the eyes and said the words that sliced through my chest like a knife. "Dad, you're too old to join us on vacation. Just stay home." If you've ever poured your entire soul into raising a child, sacrificing nights of sleep, weekends, and even your dreams, you'll understand why those words still echo in my head. Before I continue, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and tell me in the comments if you've ever been betrayed by the very person you trusted most. I had been packing for weeks. My suitcase lay open on the bed, filled with shirts I'd ironed myself, comfortable shoes for walking tours, and even a guidebook I'd borrowed from the library about Rome. I was ready for this trip, a family vacation, just like we used to do when she was little. I remembered the last family trip we had taken before her mother passed away. We drove down to Florida, all three of us cramped in that old minivan. She was only 9 then, pressing her face against the window as we crossed the state line, squealing when she saw the ocean for the first time. Her mother and I held hands in the front seat, exhausted but happy, listening to our daughter laugh in the back. Those were the moments that made life worth living. And now, years later, when she finally had the money to travel abroad with her husband, I thought she'd want me there too. But instead of an invitation to the airport, I got a message on my phone. Her words flashed across the screen. "Dad, you're not coming with us. You're too old. My husband says it should just be us. A family vacation." Family. Like word, as if I wasn't her family anymore. I sat down heavily on the edge of my bed, staring at the half-packed suitcase. The tickets I'd booked with my credit card were still tucked into the pocket of my travel bag. My passport lay beside them. I had spent months helping her plan this trip, researching flights, sending her links to restaurants, even paying the deposit for their hotel in Paris. And now, I wasn't invited. I texted back the only word I could manage, "Okay." But inside me, something was breaking. When the day of departure came, I watched from the window as she and her husband loaded their sleek black SUV, 2 shiny new suitcases, first-class tags dangling from the handles. I recognized them. I had paid for those too, as a birthday gift for her. They didn't even come inside to say goodbye. I stood at the window, hidden behind the curtain, as they laughed, as if nothing were wrong. He put his arm around her shoulders, kissed her temple, and off they went to Europe, without me. My house felt colder than ever. I wandered through the silent rooms, pausing at the family photos on the wall. There was one of her on her 5th birthday, cake all over her cheeks as she beamed at the camera. I had baked that cake myself because her mother had been working late. Every picture was a reminder. I had been there for her every step of the way, and now she was ashamed of me. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the wood grain, my hands trembling. My late wife's voice echoed in my head. "She's your daughter. She loves you. Be patient with her." But patience had turned into humiliation. And as I sat there in that empty house, the weight of betrayal pressing down on me, I realized something. I wasn't going to let this end with me sitting quietly at home, waiting for scraps of affection. No, Rob, I was going to teach her, and her smug husband, a lesson they would never forget. And that plan started with a single phone call. The phone felt heavy in my hand as I stared at the list of contacts. My daughter thought she had everything figured out, that her husband's money, their new lifestyle, and their fancy vacations made them untouchable. What she didn't know was that the very foundation of her perfect little life had my fingerprints all over it. The down payment for their house, my retirement savings, the loan approval for their car, my name as guarantor, even the travel credit card they were using for this vacation, mine. Every piece of their comfort was built on the sacrifices I had made. And if they wanted to treat me as if I were too old, too useless, too much of a burden, then maybe it was time they learned what life without my support actually looked like. I dialed the number. "Hello, this is First Continental Bank, Mortgage Department." My voice didn't shake. Calm, steady, like I'd rehearsed this moment for years. "Yes, this is Robert Walker, co-signer on the Johnson loan. I'd like to cancel automatic payments immediately." The woman on the other end hesitated. "Sir, are you sure? The account is." "I'm sure," I cut her off. "I won't be making another payment on that loan." My hand didn't tremble as I hung up. Instead, a strange calm washed over me. For years I'd been their safety net. Now, I had just cut the rope. That was only the beginning. Next, I logged into my online banking. The hotel reservations, I had placed the deposit. A few clicks, and the charges reversed. Their suite overlooking the Eiffel Tower gone. Their rental car in Italy canceled. Their river cruise tickets in Budapest refunded. I pictured the moment they'd arrive at check-in, smug smiles plastered on their faces, only to be told there was no record of their reservation. The thought warmed me in a way I hadn't felt in years. But I wasn't finished. Line went into the garage, dug through the old filing cabinet where I kept decades of paperwork, tax returns, insurance policies, property deeds. Buried beneath them all was a manila envelope, documents I had sworn I would never use, their marriage license, their prenuptial agreement, their joint loan statements with my signature across the bottom. Every string that tied their shiny little life together was a string I could pull. I sat back in my chair, the papers spread out in front of me like weapons. For the first time since my wife died, I didn't feel powerless. I felt alive. Oh, still, as night fell and the house grew quiet, the loneliness crept back in. I poured myself a glass of whiskey and walked through the living room. My eyes landed on a framed photo of our family trip to Disney World. My daughter riding on my shoulders, her tiny hands gripping my hair as she laughed at the fireworks. How had we gone from that little girl who called me her hero to this woman who thought I was too old to matter? I sat in my armchair, whiskey in hand, staring at the flickering shadows on the wall. My plan was in motion, but beneath the anger, beneath the righteous fury, a single question gnawed at me. When she returned home from her vacation, broke, humiliated, and furious, would I even recognize the daughter who came back? Or had I already lost her forever? Paris, the city of light, romance, and disaster. Lie wasn't there, of course. But the phone call I received that first night told me everything I needed to know. It was nearly midnight when the house phone rang. I almost didn't answer. I expected it to be another scam caller, some stranger selling extended warranties. But something in my gut told me to pick up. "Dad?" Her voice crackled through the line, sharp, frantic. They say we don't have a reservation, that our card declined." "What did you do?" I leaned back in my chair, letting the silence stretch just long enough for her to squirm. "Didn't you tell me I was too old for this trip?" I finally said, my voice steady. "Too old to be part of your family vacation?" "Dad, this isn't funny," she snapped. In the background, I heard her husband arguing with the concierge in broken French. Her tone dripped with panic, the kind I hadn't heard since she was a teenager and had wrecked her car on prom night. I let her twist for a moment before responding. "Maybe it's time you learned what independence really feels like." Like there was a gasp, then a curse, and the line went dead. I smiled. My plan was working. Over the next few days, I didn't hear from her directly, but the updates reached me in fragments. My sister in Ohio forwarded me screenshots of her posts online. No more glossy Instagram shots of luxury hotels. Instead, blurry photos of crowded hostels, cheap meals, and complaints about rude Europeans who didn't understand customer service. Her husband, the man who had looked at me like I was a relic, now looked like a fool carrying their suitcases through train stations instead of being chauffeured in black cars. The image made me chuckle, but it wasn't just about money. No, I wanted her to feel the weight of her choices, to sit in the quiet of some dingy hostel bunk bed and think about the father she had cast aside. And she did. I know she did. Because on the fourth day, the calls started again. Voicemail after voicemail. "Dad, please, call me back. Dad, we're in trouble. We don't have enough money to get through the trip. Dad, I'm sorry." That last one made me pause. Sorry. It was only a word, but it carried weight. Still, I wasn't ready to let her off so easily. I poured myself another glass of whiskey and sat in the armchair, letting her words echo through the empty house. The temptation to call her back gnawed at me, but then I thought about the look in her eyes when she said I was too old, the dismissal in her tone. No, she needed to suffer a little longer. No, she needed to suffer a little longer. But I couldn't predict what would happen next, because by the time she came back home, it wasn't just money she had lost. It was something far, far worse. The day they returned, the neighborhood knew before I did. I was trimming the hedges when I saw their SUV pulling into the driveway. Later than expected, the glossy paint now dulled with dust. They stepped out, not with the triumphant glow of seasoned travelers, but with the beaten-down faces of people who'd been dragged through a storm. Her husband slammed the door harder than necessary, his jaw tight, his eyes avoiding mine. My daughter followed behind him, her once perfectly styled hair tied back in a messy bun, her face pale and tired. The expensive designer suitcase she had flaunted when leaving was scuffed and dented, one wheel missing. She caught my gaze for the first time in weeks, and in that instant, I saw it. Shame. "Dad," she began, her voice softer than I'd heard in years. But before she could finish, her husband barked. "Just get inside." His hand gripped her arm too firmly, pulling her toward the front door. Something inside me snapped. For weeks I had focused on revenge, canceling payments, pulling the rug out from under their trip, teaching them humility. But now, watching him drag her like a possession instead of a partner, I realized something chilling. This trip hadn't just exposed their arrogance, it had exposed cracks in their marriage. Cracks I hadn't seen before. That night, I sat by my bedroom window, watching as lights flickered on and off in their house across the street. Shouts carried faintly through the night air. Words I couldn't quite catch, but the tone was unmistakable. Rage, desperation, and the sound of a woman trying not to cry. For the first time since this began, I questioned myself. Had I gone too far? Had my revenge pushed them to the edge? The next morning, the knock came. When I opened the door, my daughter stood there, eyes red, suitcase at her feet. "Dad," she whispered, her voice breaking, "can I stay here for a while?" Once I stepped aside wordlessly, letting her in. She moved through the familiar hallway, her hand brushing against the family photos on the wall, as though grounding herself. She collapsed on the couch, covering her face with her hands. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the old clock ticking in the corner. Finally, she said it, the words that cut deeper than her rejection ever had. "Dad, I think I married the wrong man." Her words hung in the air like smoke. "I think I married the wrong man." For years she had defended him, praised his ambition, excused his arrogance, even laughed at his cruel little jokes. But now, after just one failed vacation, the facade was cracking. I sat across from her, searching her face. She looked smaller somehow, fragile. The confidence she carried like armor stripped away. "What happened?" I asked quietly. She lifted her head, eyes swollen from crying. "Dad, you were right. He doesn't love me. He loves control. The money, the image, the power. And when it all fell apart in Europe, when the hotels wouldn't take us, when the cards stopped working, he blamed me. He said I was useless, that I had embarrassed him. Her voice faltered. He grabbed my arm so hard I thought it would break. My chest tightened. I wanted to storm across the street, drag that smug little man out by his collar, and show him what happens when you hurt my daughter. But I stayed still, because this moment wasn't about me. It was about her finally seeing the truth. She pulled something from her purse and placed it on the coffee table. A crumpled sheet of paper. I smoothed it out with trembling hands. It was an email, printed, not forwarded. My stomach dropped as I read the words. Paris was a disaster. I deserved better than this. I'll be with you soon. Don't worry, she'll never know. The message was signed with his name, and it wasn't addressed to my daughter. I looked up slowly. He's cheating on you. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I found it on his laptop while he was in the shower. I wanted to believe it was a mistake, but Dad, her voice cracked. He's been seeing her for months, maybe longer. A silence filled the room, not the silence of peace, but the heavy silence of truth settling between us. I reached across the table, taking her hand in mine. Sweetheart, listen to me. You are not weak. You are not worthless. And you don't have to stay with him. She clutched my hand like it was a lifeline. And for the first time in years, I saw not the grown woman who pushed me away, but the little girl who used to run to me when she scraped her knee. But before either of us could say another word, the sound of tires screeching outside shattered the moment. Headlights flared through the window. Her husband's SUV. He was back. And this time, he wasn't coming over to talk. The slam of the car door echoed down the street, heavy, angry footsteps crunched against the gravel as he approached. My daughter froze on the couch, her hand gripping mine tighter than when she was a child afraid of thunder. "Dad," she whispered, her voice trembling, "please don't let him in." But before I could answer, the pounding started. 3 hard knocks against my front door. Then his voice, sharp and venomous. "Open up, old man. I know she's in there." I stood slowly, every joint in my body aching, but my spine was straight. Years of humiliation had worn me down, but in this moment, I felt stronger than I had in years. I opened the door just enough to face him. His eyes were wild, his shirt wrinkled from travel, his fists clenched. He reeked of stale alcohol. "Where is she?" he demanded. I kept my tone calm. "She's safe. That's all you need to know." His jaw tightened, and for a second, I thought he might swing at me. But instead, he leaned forward, his voice a low hiss. "You think you can protect her? You think she'll listen to you? She's mine. She'll always be mine." Behind me, I heard my daughter's voice, trembling but firm. "No, I'm not yours. Not anymore." He pushed against the door, forcing it open wider. For a split second, his gaze landed on her, tear-streaked but defiant. His face twisted with rage, and that's when I stepped fully into the doorway, blocking him. My hands shook, but not from fear, from the flood of anger I'd kept bottled for too long. "You listen to me," I said, my voice steady, louder than I thought possible. "You don't get to touch her. You don't get to hurt her. You don't even get to speak to her unless she wants it. Do you understand?" He sneered. "Or what?" The question hung in the night air, thick with challenge. I didn't flinch. Instead, I opened my hand, revealing the manila envelope I had kept hidden until now. The documents, the loans, the proof of his dependence on me. "Or I pull the last string holding your world together," I said. "You've built your little empire on my name, my credit, my money. Without me, you have nothing." For the first time, his arrogance cracked. His eyes flickered, his mouth opening as if to argue, but no words came out. Behind me, my daughter whispered, "Dad, what's happening?" I didn't answer, because at that moment, headlights appeared at the end of the street, 2 police cruisers rolling slowly toward the house. And that was when his mask slipped completely. He turned pale, muttered something under his breath, and bolted toward his SUV. The tires squealed as he sped away into the night. My daughter clutched my arm, trembling. "Dad, why are the police here?" I looked out the window as the cruisers stopped in front of my house, red and blue lights flashing across the walls. Officers stepped out, their faces grim. I swallowed hard. "Because, sweetheart, there's something I haven't told you yet." The flashing red and blue lights painted streaks across my living room walls. My daughter's grip tightened around my arm as 2 officers walked up the porch steps. One knocked firmly, the other resting a hand near his holstered weapon. "Mr. Walker?" the taller one asked when I opened the door. I nodded, my heart steady. I'd been expecting this moment. "Sir, we received your call earlier this week regarding suspected fraud, threats, and domestic violence. We'd like to ask you and your daughter a few questions." Her eyes widened. She turned to me, shocked. You called the police? About him?" I met her gaze. I couldn't just sit by and watch anymore. "I didn't tell you because I knew you weren't ready to hear it yet, but I've been keeping records. The loans, the payments, the way he treated you. I gave the police everything." The officers stepped inside, their presence filling the room with a strange mix of safety and tension. One of them gently asked my daughter to recount what had happened in Europe. What happened tonight? Her voice shook at first, but then it steadied as she told them everything about the financial lies, the grabbing, the shouting, the email to another woman. I watched her speak, my chest swelling with both pride and sorrow. Pride that she was finally standing up for herself. Sorrow that she had endured so much before realizing she deserved better. When she finished, one officer nodded. "We'll be issuing a warrant. If he comes back tonight, call us immediately. Do not engage with him." She nodded, tears streaking her face. As the officers left, my daughter collapsed into my arms. For a long moment, we just held each other, father and daughter, broken pieces trying to fit back together. "I'm sorry, Dad," she whispered into my chest. "I should never have said you were too old. I thought I thought I needed him more than I needed you, but I see it now. You've always been there. He never was. I stroked her hair like I used to when she was little. Sweetheart, I'd forgive you 1,000 times if it meant keeping you safe. For the first time in years, I felt like a father again. Not a burden, not a relic, but the man my daughter could lean on. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Her husband was out there, humiliated, furious, and dangerous. And men like him didn't just disappear quietly. The real storm was still coming. The night after the police left was eerily quiet. Too quiet. My daughter fell asleep on the couch, her head resting on a pillow she hadn't used since she was a teenager. I sat in my old recliner, keeping watch, every creak of the house, setting my nerves on edge. At 2:13 a.m., the quiet shattered. Lane cut across the curtains. The roar of an engine idled outside my house. My heart dropped. I knew it was him. I stood slowly, careful not to wake her, and peeked through the blinds. His SUV was parked crooked across my lawn, engine still running. He sat inside, staring at the house, just staring. Then the door slammed. He stepped out, swaying slightly, drunk, reckless. His face glistened with sweat, and even from the window I could see the madness in his eyes. I grabbed the phone and dialed 911. My voice was low but urgent. "He's here, the man you issued the warning for. He's outside my house." The dispatcher told me to stay calm, stay inside, that units were already on their way. But calm wasn't possible, not when I heard him pounding on the door again, harder this time. "Open up," he roared. "You can't hide her forever." My daughter stirred awake, sitting up groggily. Her face turned pale the second she heard his voice. "Dad, he's here." "Stay behind me," I said firmly. The pounding grew louder, then the sound of glass shattering, the front window. My daughter screamed as he reached through, fumbling for the lock. I moved fast, faster than I thought my old body still could. I shoved a heavy chair against the door and grabbed the fire poker from beside the fireplace. My hands trembled, but not with fear, with determination. I forced his arm further in, grunting, twisting the lock. His voice was a snarl now. "You think you can take her from me, old man? You think she's yours?" "No," I growled, raising the poker. "She's hers, and she's free." Before he could push further inside, the wail of sirens pierced the night. Red and blue lights flashed through the window again. He froze, panic flashing across his face, and stumbled back, just as officers rushed the lawn with flashlights and weapons drawn. "Hands where we can see them," one shouted. But instead of obeying, he bolted toward the SUV. Tires screeched, rubber burned against pavement, and in seconds he was gone, swallowed by the night. The police swarmed my yard, radios crackling. One officer assured us they'd catch him, that he couldn't run forever. My daughter clung to me, shaking. "Dad," she whispered, her tears hot against my shirt. "If you hadn't been here tonight, I don't think I'd still be alive." I held her tight, my jaw clenched. Because I knew the truth. This wasn't over. Not yet. Men like him don't give up after humiliation. They come back harder, uglier, more desperate. And when he did, when the final confrontation came, I would be ready. 3 days passed. 3 long days of waiting, watching, and never knowing when he might come back. The police increased patrols in the neighborhood. A cruiser idled at the corner most nights, headlights washing over the trees. My daughter barely left the house, her laughter, her confidence, her spark, all stripped away by fear. But me? I was done being afraid. On the morning of the 4th day, I woke before dawn. The air was heavy, the sky still dark. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of black coffee, the fire poker leaning against the wall. My daughter slept in the guest room down the hall. That's when I heard it, the crunch of gravel outside, slow, deliberate. I moved to the window, careful not to make a sound. There he was, standing in my yard, his silhouette lit by the weak glow of the street lamp. No SUV this time, just him, clutching something in his hand. I couldn't tell if it was a crowbar or a bat. I picked up the phone again, dialing 911. My voice was low, urgent. "He's back, he's armed." But before the dispatcher could respond, the pounding started. Not on the door this time. On the side of the house, the thud of metal against wood. He was trying to break in. My daughter woke with a start, running into the living room. Her face turned white when she saw him through the window. "Dad, please, he's crazy." I pulled her behind me. "Stay back." The sound of splintering wood filled the house as he pried at the side door. Each strike was louder, closer. Then, crack, the frame gave way. He staggered inside, eyes wild, weapon in hand. "You think you can steal my wife?" he screamed, spit flying. "You think you can ruin my life?" He raised the weapon. For a split second, everything slowed. The weight of the fire poker in my hand, my daughter's terrified gasp, the pounding of my heart. And then I swung. Let the metal connected with a sickening thud. He stumbled back, roaring, clutching his shoulder. His weapon clattered to the floor. Before he could recover, the front door burst open. Police officers stormed in, weapons drawn, shouting commands. He froze, breathing hard, his chest rising and falling like a cornered animal. "On the ground," one officer barked. One officer barked. One officer barked. This time, he didn't run. He dropped to his knees, hands raised, his eyes darting between me and my daughter. "You'll regret this," he spat, his voice low and venomous. The officers cuffed him and dragged him out of the house. The flashing lights washed over the walls once more. But this time, it felt different. It felt final. My daughter collapsed into my arms, sobbing. "It's over, Dad. It's finally over." I held her tightly, whispering into her hair. "No, sweetheart. It's just beginning. You're free now. Free to live. Free to breathe. Free to be yourself again." And for the first time in years, I felt the same. The night the police took him away, the house finally felt still. No pounding at the door, no headlights on the lawn, no fear crawling under the walls, just silence. My daughter sat curled up on the couch, wrapped in one of her mother's old quilts. She looked at me with red, swollen eyes. "Dad, I don't know how to thank you." I sat beside her, my joints aching, but my heart light for the first time in months. "You don't need to thank me. I'm your father. This is what fathers do." She leaned her head on my shoulder, just like she used to as a little girl, when the world felt too big. "I thought I had to grow away from you to prove I was strong. But the truth is, I was never stronger than when I had you by my side." Her words broke something inside me, broke it, and healed it all at once. For years, I had felt invisible, discarded, too old to matter. But in that moment, I realized something important. Age doesn't erase love. It doesn't erase wisdom. It doesn't erase the role of a parent. The next weeks were slow, but healing. She filed for divorce. The courts listened, and thanks to the evidence I'd kept, the loans, the threats, the police reports, she walked away free. Free, but not alone. She stayed with me for a while, helping around the house, cooking meals we hadn't shared together in years. We laughed again. We cried again. We remembered her mother together, not with silence and distance, but with stories and smiles. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, she reached over and squeezed my hand. "Dad," she said softly, "next summer, let's take that trip. Just you and me, no husbands, no shame, just us." The lump in my throat was too big to speak. All I could do was nod. And for the first time in a long, long time, I believed in tomorrow. Life has a cruel way of showing us who really stands by our side. Children grow up, partners change, people betray us. But love, the kind of love built on years of sacrifice and sleepless nights, doesn't fade. It waits. Sometimes it hurts, but it waits. Lady, never let anyone convince you that you're too old to matter. You are the roots of the tree, and no matter how far the branches stretch, they'll always need the roots to stand tall. If you've ever felt discarded, overlooked, or betrayed, remember this: your worth doesn't disappear just because others fail to see it. And if this story touched you, don't forget to subscribe, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and leave a comment below. I want to hear your story too, because sometimes the most powerful revenge is simply living long enough to see the truth come out.